This week on Quality Digest Live, we consider the economies of scale for the quality department, but not in the way you think. That and more when we come back.
This week's sponsor of Quality Digest Live is Olympus, specializing in easy-to-use microimaging and metrology systems that provide the measurement and images you need.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for August 15th, 2014. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest. My esteemed colleague, Dirk Ducharme, is on vacation. So, in honor of my absent co-host, we're going to kick off the show this week with some of the geeky tech news that Dirk loves so much. So this one's for you, buddy. One of the greatest archaeological sites in the world can be found in the city of Jinyang in China, which was the capital of that nation's first empire, the Qin dynasty, which occurred nearly 2,300 years ago. The emperor at that time, Qin Shi Huang, ordered the construction of a miniaturized underground replica of his imperial capital, which was meant to last for eternity. To protect those tiny palaces and buildings and other things, the emperor decreed that the imperial guard be replicated as well, down to the smallest detail and poised for battle in red-brown terracotta clay. Thousands of these figurines were unearthed in 1974, and the detail is amazing. Everything from the uniforms to the arms to the horses and chariots are rendered in incredibly lifelike miniature. You can actually see some of it there. It's incredible. These are little tiny terracotta clay figurines that are 2,300 years old and were buried until 1974. It's really, really incredible, and you can see the detail in some of that. Now, all of these figurines give archaeologists, historians, and other researchers a fascinating glimpse into the world inhabited by these people at a time when Rome, for instance, was still coming together as a major power. Again, this is 2,300 years ago, 300 years before the advent of Jesus Christ, an amazingly long time ago. So, in looking at the detailing of these figurines a bit more closely, chemists determined that a local lacquer was used as a base coat, with a polychrome material covering that. This was made up of a binding material and natural inorganic pigments such as cinnabar, apatite, azurite, and malachite. The pigments have been known for some time, but the exact composition of the binding material was a mystery to researchers for quite some time, but no more. Using a technique known as MALDI-TOF-MS, which of course stands for Matrix-Assisted Laser Desorption, Ionization, Time-of-Flight Mass Spectrometry, yes, scientists were able to determine that the unknown material was a proteinous binding media, most similar to animal glue proteins. So it was glue, animal glue. Mystery solved. Well, the takeaway for me here is how the ever more sensitive equipment used for test and measurement is helping scientists in a variety of fields make more discoveries. Chemistry is a great example of this. It was something of a stagnant field for a long period of time, but the more sophisticated analytical tools now coming online have really been game changers for chemists everywhere, whether they're on the factory floor or at historic sites like this one in China. In other words, what we're talking about here is this idea that test and measurement equipment, which really has proliferated, obviously, in sensitivity in recent years on shop floors and factories across the world, really now is being used by scientists to advance their art, to make sure that they can do the research they need to do, find out the information that they need to find out about something like this, an ancient site where these figurines have been unearthed now for 40 years. Just now are they able to use this technology to uncover what the base material, that binding material was that made that what it was, and look at what it really looked like 2,300 years ago. Really, really fascinating stuff. So, for more information on this news item, and in fact all the stories that I'm going to be covering on today's show, be sure to check out the story links just below this video player screen, right down there. Oh, and if you have a comment or a question about anything that we're covering on today's show, send that on to us at QDL@qualitydigest.com. Again, that's QDL@qualitydigest.com. And if we have time at the end of the show, I'll answer the questions you have about any of the stories, either this Chinese terracotta army story, or the story that I'm going to be turning to here in a moment, or the tech corner we're going to be showing later today. Anything that you have questions about, send them over to us and we'll answer them again before the end of the show. Okay. Well, now, turning again to that feature article for this week, we examine the question of whether bigger is better when it comes to the size of one's quality department. For the answer, we're going to take a look at the article, Want Quality? From regular contributor Arun Hariharan. The piece ran in yesterday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. Again, Arun Hariharan is a longtime columnist for Quality Digest Daily and always writes on these ideas of management and always tries to look at efficiency and making sure that what you're doing out there makes sense and that it can be as efficient as you want it to be in terms of running your quality and improving your organization. So the question he asks here, of course, is the one that I teased, is can a small quality department be superior to a large one? And if so, how and why? How and why does that work? He looks at the question from the perspective of a pair of companies. Now, these two companies are in the same industry. They're approximately the same size. And they both began their quality journey about 10 years ago. But that's where the similarities end, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. The first organization, which Hariharan creatively calls Company A, has fewer than 25 people in their quality department. The second, which he refers to as Company B, has more than 100 folks in there. So again, think about that. Same size companies in terms of headcount. I think that the number that he mentions is about 18,000. It's about 18,000 employees in these companies. One has 25 people in the quality department at any given time. The other has 100. So you kind of know where this is going. Now, however, while Company A has enjoyed great returns, again, Company A is the one that has only 25 people, they've enjoyed great returns from their smaller quality department. On the other hand, Company B has achieved much less from their larger one. So the question, of course, is why? For Hariharan, the key to the success of Company A lies not in how many people are allocated to quality, but how and what they do in quality to make that work. What they do is they move people in and out of the department on a regular basis. They have a core cadre of quality professionals, a handful of them, half a dozen or five, I believe, is the number that Hariharan mentions. So they have this core cadre of quality professionals, but around them and to do projects and the work of quality within the organization, they have another couple of dozen people who are just regular folks. For instance, maybe they're mid-level managers who have been moved from their regular job, quote unquote, and assigned to the quality department for a period of time. Now, that individual will then learn the basics of quality, and he or she will learn how the basis of quality applies to the company's functional business operations. Specifically, generally, they'll do that within the framework of what that person was doing previously. Like if that person was an HR person, they will come in and they'll look at operations within HR from a quality perspective. After a relatively short period of time, say a year or two, that manager is then returned to his or her regular, quote-unquote, job, only now with a deep understanding of the philosophy of continuous improvement. While that manager now spreads the gospel of practical quality to his or her department, while they're doing that, somebody else takes his or her place on the quality team, and the process continues from there. On the other hand, Company B, again, the one with 100 people, full-time people, regular people in their quality department, structures the department in a much more traditional way, what you can consider to be a much more traditional way, with dedicated professionals who spend their days doing pretty much the same thing day after day after day. Rarely, if ever, do they interact directly with the larger operational structure of the company. Quality then, the punchline here, quality then, of course, becomes a silo, and the lessons learned, if there are any, don't have a chance to enter the consciousness of the larger organization. In other words, they're setting these 100 people out and they're saying, okay, you're quality people and you're going to do that quality work. You're not necessarily going to touch the rest of the company. You're not going to really have maybe a great understanding of what the rest of the company does. You're going to be focused on what you do. You're going to be a silo, and the lessons that you do learn from your quality improvement efforts really aren't going to spread that well. The results are stark in case of Company A and Company B, and they're impressive too in the case of Company A. Company A has had more than 2,500 people work in their quality department and gain exposure to these ideas in the 10 years that they've been at this. So think about that, 2,500 people, 25 at a time. That's a big turnover, and that's a huge number of people with the quality mindset now in their organization. And as Hariharan points out, the quality mindset really is a discrete approach that really tends to stay with people once they've been exposed to it. I mean, we all know this. I mean, any of us who are in quality or have been exposed to quality knows that there's a certain way you approach problems. There's a data-driven mindset where you look at situations and you break them out in their component parts. You understand things like value streams and process flows, and you're able to start breaking those down. But if you don't have that experience, if you haven't done it, you will look at problems in a much different way. And what Hari Haran is saying here is that company B doesn't allow its people its quality people to interact with the rest of the organization and spread that wisdom. Company A does, and again, they've benefited appropriately. Now, one thing I should point out here is that Company A does have, again, that core cadre of quality professionals. This isn't just a free-for-all where everybody cycles in and cycles out. They have a core group of people that have been there for quite some time who are management-level quality people. That is their discrete their discrete background. So those people stay, but the people around them change, and they work on projects within the framework of what those people know to do, what those people have done in the past in the organization, what they're going to be doing again in the organization. So again, quality spreads everywhere. So what does this mean? And how can it be applied to any of our companies, really? I think that we talk about silos a lot here. We talk about it on the show. I know a lot of readers ask us about silos. A lot of our contributors and columnists talk about silos. And there's a lot of silos in many organizations, but I don't know that there's any one that's more insidious than a silo that forms around quality. Because, again, as Hari Haran points out, it handicaps the organization where you don't have the ability to have that quality mindset, and you don't have a chance to spread that everywhere. If quality is a silo, then you're not going to have a chance to get quality everywhere and spread it out throughout the organization. And exposing the largest possible number of your people to in your organization and that mindset really, I think, is important. So this is a good one. I think this is an interesting story. I think it's an important story. I think it's one that many people should really consider. You may want to consider it too if you find maybe that you're having some stagnancy in your quality division, your quality department. Consider this. Maybe consider bringing in people from outside the quality department, bring them into that department, and let them be exposed to this information, and then send it back. Let them then spread that gospel to the rest of the organization. You might be very pleased with the results. Again, that's Aaron Hari Haran, Why Quality, and it was in yesterday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. You can check it out again right below the player page right down there. Comment on it. I always encourage all of you to comment on stories that we run so we can keep the conversation going. Okay. Well, we're going to turn now to the Tech Corner segment of the show, and for this one, we're going to return to the recent Hexagon Live user conference that Dirk attended in June. As many of you may recall from last week's show, we captured several really interesting new product demos of that event. We showed some of them last week, and in this segment now, Dirk is going to take a look at the 7107 SF Shop Floor CMM, PC DMIS Touch, and the Q-Flash Structured Light Vision System. Again, that was from Hexagon Live in June, so check it out.
So Lester, it looks like we're looking at the larger brother from an SF machine that I saw a couple years ago, right?
Exactly right, exactly right. So our evolution of shop floor machines, as you know, has been the Sheffield Discovery and the Brown & Sharp 1. We took everything we learned about shop floor machines, totally redesigned the SF series, and as you mentioned, the 454 was the first. So now we introduce the 7107, the larger big brother to that machine.
Right.
And we're also going to talk about a few other things, once again, with the user experience in mind.
Okay.
So we begin here with a touch screen. This is PC DMIS Touch running PC DMIS behind the background.
And the PC DMIS Touch was a product that was released by Hexagon, 2 years ago, 1 year ago?
About a year ago.
Okay, touch
Correct.
screen, basically touch screen for PC DMIS.
Yeah, totally
okay.
touch screen, all new interface. So we selected this measurement routine, and now it will begin to run what is on this pallet.
Okay.
Now each of these pallets are interchangeable and repeatable. So there's a kinematic seat that allows me to swap pallets and interchange them without having to redate them, the parts.
Okay, and by kinematic seat, what is that?
So it's a 3-point nest
Okay.
that will only go in one way and assures that whatever's mounted to the fixture is in its original coordinate system.
So when you take a fixture off and you put it back, it goes right back in the same
That's
spot.
exactly
Okay,
right.
Okay.
So for batch mode, I can run a lot of parts of the same, or as you see here, in a job shop type environment, I have dissimilar parts that need to be run periodically through the day. I can simply mount them up, and then as you saw with the user interface, I just simply select which part I want and it goes and measures it.
Okay.
Now, of course, like the smaller machine that you recall when you saw it in Quonset Point, this machine is completely mechanical bearings. There are no air bearings, and there's no air required. So the pneumatic counterbalance for Z is not pneumatic, it's mechanical.
Okay, and what's the purpose for not having air bearings? I mean, I'm kind of used to seeing air bearings, they're nice and smooth. And
It's built just like a machine tool.
Okay.
So it has sealed roller packs, and it's basically for making the machine completely shop hardened.
so you can't get, a problem with air bearings is you can get gunk in them, is that basically the technical
Correct.
term?
Eventually
Yeah.
you will get gunk,
Yeah.
you know, between the air bearing and the waste surface.
Okay.
And you see the bellows that protect the waste system. The scales are inverted, so they're on the bottom instead of on the top, so
Okay.
you're not going to get contamination on that. You'll also notice that the measuring volume has been put on the machine. So this is
Okay.
very, very helpful for someone who's doing setups to be able to see what is the measuring stroke of the machine.
This is actually interesting. You mentioned little additions that Hexagon keeps putting in some of their equipment. I believe one of the discussions this morning or yesterday by your UI guy, your user interface guy, he was talking about it's just little things that make a difference.
Yeah.
It's like just knowing where the edge of the volume is.
That's right.
It's a small thing, but it's important if you...
The guy that you remember is Milan Kosic.
Milan Kosic,
and
yeah.
Milan and his development team are focused basically on nothing but user experience.
Okay.
So they're looking at all of our products and looking at how can we make the product ergonomically better or more efficient or just simply easier for the operator to walk up and start measuring.
Okay. Anything else we should know?
No, that's about it.
Okay, great. This is the SF7107.
That is correct.
Okay, Lester, so what is this crazy looking contraption that Ray is holding over here?
So this is the new Q-Flash. This is part of our Cognitance White Light System product portfolio. The WLS400 is the larger big brother to this machine. It's basically projecting a known array onto the part, and then with stereo vision, the three cameras take a shot and capture it.
Structured light.
Structured light is exactly correct.
So they don't. It's white. We call them white light scanners, but they're really not white light anymore.
Well, it's
are they?
actually blue, it's actually
blue.
blue light, but it's generally known as a white light scanner.
Okay.
So the beauty of the Q-Flash is that it's much lighter and easier to hold. And it is the only scanner on the market that can be handheld. And the reason for that is the speed of the acquisition. So the shots are taken in milliseconds, and it allows us to be impervious to normal shop and vibration. The part that we're measuring can actually be moving, so if you think about an aircraft with people working on it, you can actually be doing measurements at the same time.
Okay.
So we're able to use it in handy mode, as well as you've seen a growing trend in our business is to automate these.
Put on robotic
put it on the robots.
on a Fennec or
Exactly
something.
right.
Okay,
Exactly right. So once he's taken his tiles, then he basically will ask for a color map, and now we have a complete 3D representation of the workpiece.
Okay. And what software are we looking at here? Just out of
This is CoreView.
CoreView. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So CoreView is integral to the Cognitance product line.
And what's the field of view of the?
That's a great question. This is 350 by 350 millimeter.
Okay.
Yep.
And so obviously you can measure whatever size object you want, right? I mean, it just stitches it together as you go along?
The field of view is, just depends on how many tiles you're going to stitch together. That's exactly right.
Okay. And typically what applications is this being used at?
Automotive and aerospace, primarily. Okay. Yeah, this technology was born and grew up really in the automotive industry. It's been mature there for quite a while. But large-scale metrology is large-scale metrology, so we found because of our presence in aerospace, a lot of applications that are perfect for aerospace as well.
Okay.
And many others.
All right.
Well, there you go. Lester Glover with Dirk Ducharme at Hexagon Live in June. They were looking at the 7107 SF Shop Floor CMM, PCD Miss Touch, and the Q-Flash Structured Light Vision System. Again, that was Dirk with Lester Glover. Thank you, Hexagon, for having us out there in June. We got some good tech corners out of that, and actually you'll be seeing one more of those segments coming up here in the upcoming week, so look out for that. Okay. Well, as you all know, here at Quality Digest, we have a pretty active Twitter presence, I'd say. We have several thousand followers, and we ourselves follow Lots of folks tweeting about things like quality, of course, manufacturing, management, risk, innovation, and a whole heck of a lot more. Periodically on the show, we like to call out an interesting tweet that came to our attention. So without further ado, here's today's tweet of the week, and it comes from Twitter user Bernie Ritchie, who was retweeting actually the words of Twitter user Edgar Van. If plan A does not work, remember the alphabet has 25 more letters. Take it in stride, there's another way. And there is always another way. That's good advice there. There's another way of doing everything. So make sure that you creatively look at those other ways of doing whatever it is that you're doing. Hopefully Quality Digest Daily and Quality Digest Live are good sources of ideas for you, as is our Twitter site, to have ideas about how to do that. So as always, you can follow us on Twitter at Quality Digest. Okay, well, that's our show for the week. But before we close, I'd like to offer our thanks to this week's sponsor, Olympus America. Discover another dimension in microimaging and metrology with test, measurement, inspection, and imaging instruments designed for high-precision quality control and R&D. Olympus engineered solutions enhance quality and productivity in industrial markets around the world. For more information, click on the banner ad just below or just to the right of this video player screen. Okay, well, thank you, Olympus. Well, actually, turns out, I guess, that we have a question here today. I did ask for that, so somebody sent in a question. So, Christopher, if you have that question up, I will read it off the screen and you can let me know what it is. Okay. Any idea how many quality functions, such as mechanical inspection, have been transferred to manufacturing with the smaller group? Interesting question. Arun actually didn't refer to that, but certainly that is what he's talking about here, is discrete functions like that. Tactical functions like that, like inspection, mechanical inspection, would be the province of people within that space. So if you're on the shop floor doing that work and they take you off the shop floor and bring you in then to the quality department, sure, that's going to be something that you're going to be doing, and it's going to be something that you're going to be able to look at with a different eye. That's the point of this, was that they're not just taking people from any old place in the organization. They're taking them from particular parts of the organization to do particular things that person, he or she, is doing. Again, if you're doing mechanical inspection for your regular job and you're brought into the quality department, sure, that experience that you have is going to be very useful, and that's going to be used within the quality department then to improve that process, and you're going to take that improvement back to your organization, and your team members will be able to sit down with you and work on that after you're no longer maybe in the quality department, or while you are as well, and again, improve that as you go forward. So thanks for that question. I appreciate that. We always like to answer questions on the show. If anybody else has a question, get them in quick, because we're wrapping it up here pretty soon. If there are any questions, again, just send them to us at qdl@qualitydigest.com, and I'll try to answer them on the screen. If not, if you have a question that I don't get a chance to get to it here in the next minute or so, send them on and we'll answer it offline after the show. Okay, well, that is our show. Thank you again, all of you, for joining us. Thank you to Arun Hariharan for a great article on the relative size of quality departments and the importance of that. Thank you for that article on the Terra-Cotta soldiers that came from China. Really interesting stuff there. And thank you, of course, to Hexagon and Lester Glover for hosting us at Hexagon Live and giving us a great tech corner. Well, that's our show. Again, thank you all for joining us as well. Thank you to Olympus for sponsoring. Thank you to me for hosting. And again, we'll see you next week. Another great week of Quality Digest Daily. So join us on Monday, and we'll see you then. Thanks.